recorded live and is streaming. All representations to council, written or verbal, will form part of the public record and be available to the public for viewing electronically or as a written record. Members of the public may access the meeting or participate in the following ways. 1. Watch the meeting live or recorded. Individuals who wish to watch the meeting may view it on the District of Summerland YouTube channel at youtube.com, District of Summerland, live or recorded. 2. Register in advance to speak during the meeting. Members of the public who wish to provide comment during the public comment opportunities found under items 6 and 9 are asked to register in advance by contacting the corporate officer at corporateofficer@summerland.ca. Please provide the following information: your name and civic address, and how you are going to be participating, whether by telephone or Zoom. Further details will be provided to you upon registration. 3. Request to speak during the meeting. Those who have not registered in advance but wish to speak during the public comment opportunities may connect to the meeting. Connect to the meeting by calling the meeting conference line at 778-907-2071 and entering meeting ID 506-489-9374 and passcode 485186. After I have provided everybody who has registered with an opportunity to comment, the floor will be opened up to those on the conference line. Corporate officer, are there any late items to introduce?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have 2 late items that require a vote of council to add to the agenda. The first being a delegation item 5.2 with the Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center, and business item 7.3, the Okanagan Nation Alliance. Both are looking for letters of support of council.
Thank you. So that's items 5.2 and 7.3?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there someone on council that is willing to bring forward that? Thank you, Councillor Traynor and Councillor Holmes. All in favor? Great. Thank you. CAO.
Yes, Madam Mayor, I just wanted to take a moment and remind people for Zoom meeting etiquette, and knowing it's a streaming meeting for the public, it is desirable if everybody can have their cameras on for these meetings, if you have capability to do so, and to remain muted unless you're speaking. So if we can turn the cameras on, that would be great.
Thank you, CAO. That's a good reminder for all of us. Okay, so on to item 3, which is approval of the agenda as amended. Council? Councillor Traynor, thank you. Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Okay, great, thank you. None opposed to that. And adoptions of the minutes. There are 4 sets of minutes, still in draft form, of course. Committee of the Whole of January the 14th, Committee of the Whole January the 16th, Regular Council afternoon of the 14th of December, and minutes of the Special Council meeting December the 18th. Any changes or errors or omissions in those minutes? All right, could I ask someone to bring, thank you, Councillor Holmes and Councillor Van Elfen, all in favor? Great, thank you.
I just had a question, if I may.
Oh, yes, of course.
I was just wondering why from a year ago that we're approving minutes from a year ago, did they just slip through the net somehow that we never approved them? Or?
Corporate officer, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, actually, these 2 sets of minutes were Committee of the Whole minutes that were never brought to council for approval. So the end of December, when we were reviewing our annual meeting minute schedule, we noted that these 2 needed to come to council.
Okay, thank you, Karen. So those are approved. On to delegations. 5.1, Liberty Contract Management, Seniors Affordable Housing Development. And I see that we have Scott And Brian, are you speaking to this as well?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay,
as
great.
well as Scott.
Scott. Okay, great. So please, we're interested in hearing what your proposal is, and please go ahead.
Yes, in brief, we approached with the seniors Summerland Society in Summerland area. So we've been in talks with the developing proposal coming forth with the BC housing project. So Scott, you have some more details on that?
Yeah, so thanks very much for having us on the agenda today. Just in very, very brief, this is very preliminary at this time. This is kind of the first of many, many steps that would have to follow. But the Seniors Village, the Legion Village, not associated with the Legion in any way. This is a nonprofit housing society strictly. They have a piece of land that is located 13603 Dixon Avenue. Right now it's currently zoned as residential medium density. So they've got just over 20 units there that they are operating for low-income seniors, been in operation since the 70s. They have a waiting list that is fairly significant. And so the idea at this time is to explore the option of redeveloping that site, perhaps seeing if we could get a letter of support from mayor and council to apply for some additional funding. So we would go through the various funding programs. Everyone may or may not be aware there was a CHF Community Housing Fund through BC Housing. The call is finishing in January. But this year coming up, there should be available funds for seniors housing. And the thought is if everything works out, what would the likelihood or potential be to rezone that property to increase some density? And then we would make some applications for some funding and hopefully bring some new affordable housing units into Summerland. Right now, they are currently renting out, I think the lowest rental over there is about $350 a month, and their newer renters coming in are about $550 a month. So it would be the goal to provide some obviously quite affordable housing if possible, and gear it towards seniors. So it would still be a 65 plus facility there. That is kind of the long and the short of it. In the rezoning, initial thoughts would be, we recognize it's a low density area surrounding it. So this would be a building that would be a little bit different for the kind of immediate area, but hoping to pitch something in the range of 3, maybe 4 stories. And then we would add some density if possible to be 40 to 60 units. And then these would be a mixture of studios, 1 bedrooms and 2 bedrooms. And again, this is as preliminary as it gets. So there's nothing fancy to show today. This is just kind of an introduction to the idea, answer any questions, see if we can get any feedback. And then if things are looking positive, we take the next step. Of course, the seniors, so the Legion Village, they're quite excited. They're very interested in getting this thing redeveloped as well. So I'll turn it over to anybody who wants to ask me any questions now.
Great. I'm just going to ask one very easy question for you to answer. I didn't catch the civic address of this property. It's on Dixon Avenue. I remember you saying that.
Yeah, 13609.
Okay.
Dixon Ave.
Thank you. Council? Councillor Holmes and then Councillor Carlson.
Thank you. So I was just wondering if the idea is to replace the Legion Village that's currently exists there, or would it be adding on to that, or if you could just give us an idea of what the plan is with the existing housing.
Yeah, so in whole or in part, and again, this is very preliminary. We've only had preliminary discussions on it. but the plan would be in whole or in part to replace it. So right now there's 3 buildings sitting on the site in kind of a U shape. And there's, they're single story, 2 rows of units this way, 1 across the top. And so likely what would happen is we would try and utilize a little bit more of the site. And then of course, a little bit more or some height there and increase the density. But then we of course have to take into consideration, we've got people living there. So the thought is that we'd have to accommodate them in some way. We wouldn't want to kick them out. So perhaps in part, one of the buildings gets left, and as people are vacating the units, the ones that can't vacate would be either moved or stay in one of the far buildings. That building stays until such time as a new building next door is fully built. A number of options, but again, this is all very preliminary.
Thank you. Councillor Carlson.
Thank you for bringing this idea forward. I think it's pretty valuable. I actually thought that road was called Legion Village Avenue. I walk by there all the time, and the street sign does say Legion Village on it. I think it's an ideal location for something like this. I'm just wondering, in the other projects that you've done, have you seen, if you go forward and put something, a 3 or 4 story building in a location like this, is it kind of start to encourage other landowners perhaps to do some redevelopment, or does it encourage other 3 and 4 story buildings in that neighborhood? I think we have a need for it. And I think if it were up to me, that whole area would start to be developed more 3 and 4 stories. So I'm just wondering if that's, does it set a precedent? And whether you answer this or maybe our development director answers it, I think it's worth thinking about what that neighborhood might look like in the long term if we start somewhere like this.
Yeah, I guess that's largely in part up to the municipality, right? But it does, in some ways, set precedent that this could be something that could be viable in the future. Now, the project that we're proposing is unique in terms of it would be a low income and for seniors. So this is a special project rather than a developer coming into town and wanting to sell condos. So and this is again just my opinion, if Summerland wanted to keep this as a one of, I think you could say that the precedent is not set, because this, unless you want to do more affordable housing next door, the developers can't come in and just start to, or you say, actually, we want to redevelop that area. We've set a precedent with this building, and so condos is fine. This is, moving forward, but that's up to Summerland to decide.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Barkwell, I think you had your hand up. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. That's a great location for redevelopment. The purpose of this sort of delegation is just to sort of sense the council's appetite for such a development. I think it's kind of a foregone conclusion here. It's right backs into the commercial buildings of the mall there, so height on that side certainly isn't a problem. Maybe that can be considered, but just, I guess, for the record, I would like to provide encouragement. I know that the Legion Village has been looking at the idea of redeveloping the site for at least 10 years, as they did a housing needs study 10, 12 years ago. I have a copy of, and but it takes a certain amount of wherewithal, which perhaps this group can provide. So thumbs up.
Awesome.
Thank you, Councillor Barkwell. Any other questions of council? Brad, I have a question for you. Is this address, the 13609 Dixon, is that currently in the downtown, I guess, neighborhood, the downtown neighborhood planning area?
Yes, something that we've already discussed at the Downtown Task Force Committee is the scope of area we want to look at in the downtown area, and we did have some preliminary discussion about having a larger area as part of the lens of the downtown area, which would include Dixon Avenue and also the surrounding properties. And I think the idea behind looking at a larger area is to look at density and encouraging more density for residential purposes in close proximity to the downtown core. So I think what's being proposed would fall in line with the goals of that plan.
Good. Good. I'm very glad to hear that. Thank you. Other questions, Council? Okay, I guess the resolution or the motion would be to write a letter of support for this application. Is that correct, Scott or Brian? That's what you're looking for, I think.
Yeah, we would be looking for a letter of support, and we're in turn going to, like I said, we've got a number of steps to take, but we are hoping to bring in a lot of government funding to, provide this project. And the first step here is a letter of support. So
yes, and so you need that by January the 15th. Is that you're looking at that intake?
no, we're not.
Oh, okay.
So we are going to be going for some funding later on this year.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah, we won't have time for the CHF,
Yeah.
but we're going to go for the seniors one.
Okay, so there's not quite an urgency with that one, but certainly if I could ask you, Karen, just to give, I guess, read the recommended motion, and then we can have it voted on.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So the motion would be that council provide a letter to the Summerland Senior Society in support of an affordable senior housing project at 13609 Dixon Avenue, Summerland, BC.
Okay, anyone prepared to? Thank you, Councillor Holmes, and the seconder, Councillor Van Elfen. Any further discussion on this before we vote? Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks for your presentation and being here today. Great.
Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome. So now on to one of the new items, and that's 5.2. We have another delegation, and I believe that Linda Van Elfen and Ann Howard are here to as the delegation. So if I could ask you to begin. Thank you for being here.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Booch. For those of you who don't know me, I am Linda Van Elfen, and I'm here in my capacity as director of the Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center. I just wanted to say thank you to CAO Graham Statt and to Corporate Officer Karen Needham for facilitating our ability to present today as a late item. So Madam Mayor and council members, the Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center has had the provision of a larger, more efficient space for the center and affordable housing as one of their key goals for many, many years. Recently, the Housing Committee has been working diligently to develop an application to BC Housing for a relocation and housing project located at our owned property at 13212 Henry Avenue, directly across from City Hall. At Council's December 14th, 2020 meeting, you viewed an affordable housing project proposal for the old RCMP property, which was presented by Ann Howard of CPA Consultants. A few days after that, we were able to contact Ann and contracted her assistance in submitting our project to meet the BC Housing deadline of January 15th, 2021. We think that we're ready to go with this, and I'm going to pass it on to Ann to walk you through the process.
Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Karen has graciously agreed to handle the PowerPoint as I ran into some technical difficulties last time. And so if you wouldn't mind starting that, Karen, that'd be great. So let's go down to the second slide already. Certainly, I did not expect to be back in front of council this quickly. I thought the next time I'd have the opportunity of seeing you all would be at a rezoning kind of process for Jubilee. But I'm very pleased to be working with the Food Bank and Resource Center. It's the first time I've met with them, and they are a very hardworking bunch of people, very committed to providing services in Summerland. So can we just go down to the next slide there, Karen? Is everyone else seeing it and I'm not?
No, there. Oh, okay.
Now we do.
Yes, now we do.
Great. So what they said to me is we really need some more resource center space, and we just can't wait, keep waiting. We've been waiting for a long time, and we want to get going on this. And we also know that although Jubilee will have some new housing, that it's really important to have some housing right by the resource center, because people there can then just walk down the steps or hop in the elevator and have access to a whole lot more services. It's really close. It can create an area of community. Next slide. So we began working really quickly over the last few weeks, and suffice to say, there wasn't very much holiday time happening. But what we did was come up with a plan that for the bottom floor of that building, it would be wheelchair accessible. We would have staff on site for 5 days a week. There would be office space for partner agencies and space for food storage and distribution right on that ground level. Next slide. We would be proposing to go with 12 housing units. So we would have 2 bedrooms. We would have accessible units as well as 1 bedrooms. In order to do that, you can go to the next slide. Here's a little concept of what it might look like from the street. It is what we're proposing is 4 stories with a rooftop patio, so that the tenants there would have some outside space. We realize that the site is tight, and people still need some community space and a place to go that they can call their own, even though they might be in the downtown area. So on that rooftop, there would be some space for some community gardening, some outside picnic tables, some gazebos, a smoking area, and maybe a little play area for whatever children were living in the units as well. Next slide. So in order to put housing in this very compact space, here's a little example of what we would do in order to create some natural lighting within the building. And that would be so that the living spaces could have some light coming through that rooftop glass. I don't even know really what to call it. It almost looks like a terrarium or something. But anyways, it would be a space there that residents could at least get some outside light and natural lighting. The bedrooms for the units would actually, have to be facing the exterior walls. And that's why the design was created this way. Next slide. So the plan would be similar to all of the BC housing applications, where we have a nonprofit organization applying to BC Housing and CMHC for construction and operational funding. We've partnered with Greyback Construction out of Penticton They have said that they will work with us on creating the final drawings and putting a package together for BC Housing. And then I will provide some oversight of that development process and support the operational plan. The operational plan is not set in stone at this point. There's several options that I will be discussing with the board around how that space, particularly for the housing, will operate to make sure that we have good quality and experienced people that can manage that type of housing. But at the end of the day, the resource center will own and be responsible for the operating of the housing, whether they do it themselves through contract with other agencies or hiring experienced staff. Next slide. So there has been a lot of conversations that I've become aware of with the United Church and the former plan. And what has evolved over the past week or two is a recognition that the United Church just is not ready to go forward at this point in time. Their concept plan is not fully developed. It will take some more time to do that. And in the meantime, they are supporting the resource center in moving ahead and making this application to BC Housing. And on the other flip side of that, the resource center is really still very committed to supporting the United Church in the development of a feasibility study and a business plan for the redevelopment of that site. What could happen in the future is this application that we're making to BC Housing. Once it's evaluated, we'll find out whether we can move quickly on it, or we're going to have to wait a little bit. One of the financial implications of this plan is that the food bank will need to do some fundraising, and that's going to take some time. And while they're fundraising, we can still move ahead with the development of a feasibility study that can look at the bigger picture. And so that's what we would propose to do. My background would be that because we have because we need to do the fundraising component of this, we might get on what used to be called a B list. If they still do that, I don't know. But it would give us some time to talk with BC Housing, perhaps get some more pre-development funding to develop a different kind of scope of work, or just complete the scope of this one. So that's our plan, and it's come together, like I said, like we both said, very quickly. And what we're coming to you today is for a letter of support. I know in the future we'll be probably coming back to you, whether it's for the big project that might happen, or whether it's for this project, to get some support from the District of Summerland for some other kinds of things that Summerland can be a part of. But at this point in time, I think our request is that you would support us in going forward with this submission to BC Housing. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. Go ahead, please.
Linda, I think you wanted to speak to the relationship a bit more with the United Church, and I skipped that, and I'm sorry.
But I'll do it very, very quickly. Probably some of you know that we've been back and forth and back and forth and back and forth with the church on Zoom and emails and things like this. And basically what the United Church finally said to us, and I think it bears paying attention to, is that they would continue to work together on the larger project, that we should continue to work together on the larger project, that the Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center and United Church both hold the vision of a larger project that would include the food bank and resource center, the church, and affordable housing. However, they supported us in moving ahead with this individual project because they felt that it would be a way of getting our foot in the door in order to be talking to BC Housing.
Thank you, Linda. Council, questions? Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. So for this project, for the 9 units, or how many? I didn't quite catch how many total units. Sorry, how many? And
12.
12. So for those 12 units, what is the breakdown of in terms of supportive housing, low end market housing, that sort of thing that we had last time with Jubilee, or is there one?
There is, and it's exactly the same. And I was remiss in not adding it to this slide presentation. So it's 30% affordable, 50% rent geared to income, which is 30% of their income, and 20% of the units are for very low income.
And if I may follow up, how are those? Is that split? So if a unit is designated one of them, that same unit stays that this whole time, or does it change? I'm thinking specifically in terms of the 1 bedroom and 2 bedroom.
It's very flexible in that way. The percentages need to stay the same, but and it's an average over time. I mean, it's going to fluctuate a bit, but it will be, they won't just be 1 unit is always designated. In our proposal, we do split it out so that, we have 1 bedroom. We have 3 1-bedroom units, and 1 is for each category. and we have 9 for the other, and we split that up as well.
Okay, thanks. And one more, if I may. So it doesn't include any transient housing. That would be part of the bigger project with the United Church if it goes ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, this funding that's available right now is not for supportive housing in that kind of a way. And the way BC Housing funds those projects is quite different than they do this affordable housing.
Councillor Van Elfen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question through to Mrs. Howard, if I may. Has there been any discussion with the group of possibly looking at going higher with this building, a possible 5th floor? And if so, would that give you any more clout with BC Housing as per additional units?
There has been a fair amount of discussions about a 5th floor. Currently, the zoning permits 4, and we would have to come back to council for their support to go to the 5. If council were supportive, then I think the group would certainly welcome that. I think that there are some maybe some constraints in the fact that it's a small building, and to go really high might look a little odd in the present environment, but that would be a challenge that we put to our design team.
Thank you.
And if I may, more units is always good. Density is always welcomed by BC Housing. And I think that was a part of your question, Councillor Van Elfen.
Okay, great. Doug, sorry, Councillor Patton, did you have a question? Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thanks again, Ms. Howard, for presenting again. I enjoy I enjoy listening to you with the enthusiasm you have, and it's so nice to see you outside of the BC housing and on your own, which is fantastic. But anyways, let me go on. You were just talking in regards having to come to council because the zoning is for 4 stories. As the building stands right now, I would assume that there would be some variances that would have to be obtained anyways. Because I agree with Councillor Van Elpen. I think at 12 units, that I think the option of going higher, even by 1 floor, I don't think the forming character is going to blow it all out of proportion in regards to 1 floor. Cost-wise, you're going to require elevator anyway, going to 4 stories. So that 5th story really isn't going to affect as far as, because I would assume also that you're probably going to be looking at some adaptable units or some handicapped units that are going to be included in this in this project. So for myself, I know I would support you wholeheartedly if you wanted to go higher. And I realized that we were looking at something different with the church, but the church isn't ready to go. And if you're ready to go, I think we have to take the opportunities when we can to get this housing within our community. So I thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll certainly take that under consideration.
Thank you. Just before I go on to you, Councillor Holmes, I want to ask a couple of questions. The first question, I have 2 of them. One is for Linda. When you say that you have had agreement and support from Summerland United Church, is that the building committee?
It is the building committee, but I know that they did take the whole question to the trustees of the United Church as well.
Yes.
And then beyond the building committee, they went to the, let me get this straight, it's the Pacific something region of the United Church.
Yes.
And
Yep.
so like everybody all the way up the ladder is
Good.
aware of what we're doing, and they said yes, but they are not ready to do it right now.
Okay, good. Thank you. That provides the assurance I was looking for. I appreciate that. And Anne, sorry, my phone is ringing. Anne, the question I had for you relates to an answer that you gave to Councillor Holmes, I think, and that was about whether or not this is transitional housing. My question is it it's not stage 2 housing either, is it? Okay.
No, it's sometimes people get confused with the terminology.
Yes.
Certainly people that stage 2, how will I put it? Stage 2 usually comes with a fair amount of supports, but there are people that can go from being homeless into independent living.
Yes.
And that would certainly be fine. Women and children who are leaving abusive relationships don't always need to be in a second stage kind of housing. They could be housed here. There will be, security through the elevator, card access, that type of thing. So it would be very suitable for people who are leaving, women and children who are leaving those kind of relationships to be in. It's not supportive housing, it's affordable housing, but it's still suitable for many people who have other kinds of challenges in their life.
Okay, thank you. I should have mentioned this earlier to be completely transparent. I sit on the board of the South Okanagan Women in Need Society, and I know that they have asked us for a letter of support as well. So I just wanted to verify that. So thank you for that. Councillor Holmes, you had another question?
Yeah, just more of a comment, really. I guess in respect to going 5 floors, not only is the form and character of the building, we have to consider there's the form and character of the community and the downtown as a whole. And we as a council did appoint a task force to look at these sort of things. And so I don't think we should necessarily be undermining the task force that we appointed to consider these kind of issues about, like, such as height. If you know, why did we appoint the task force in the first place if we were going to do that? So I think we need to let the downtown plan task force do its job, you know, before we start making decisions that we've asked them for feedback on. Thank you.
And Councillor Holmes, I'd like to add to that, what the Food Bank and Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center is looking for today is a letter of support for the project. So I think we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves when we're talking about going from 4 to 5 stories anyways. So thank you for that, Councillor Holmes, getting us back on track again. Are there any other questions or of either Anne or Linda? Okay, I will go to you again, Karen, to read out the proposed resolution.
That council provide a letter of support to the Summerland Food Bank and Resource Center for their application to CMHC and BC Housing for the relocation and affordable housing project at 13212 Henry Avenue.
Thank you. And there is urgency on this one. So I will ask if there is any further discussion. Oh, pardon me. We need to get this on the floor. Somebody willing to bring this forward? Councillor Van Elfen and Councillor Patton. Now, any further discussion on this before we vote? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Okay, that's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you.
We'll see you at a rezoning next.
That's right. Thank you so much. It's so exciting for us on council, if I could speak on behalf of council, to have, you know, it's kind of like it never rains but it pours. It's been so dry in terms of affordable housing, and now all of these, one after another, these very exciting opportunities for the residents of Summerland. So thank you so much for coming forward, and we're happy to supply that letter of support, and wish you all the best as you move forward on this and other projects.
Thank you.
Thanks again. Bye-bye, Linda. Thank you, Anne. Back to you, Karen. Is there anybody that has requested to speak in item 6?
There is nobody on the line, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So we're on to the business items then. The first one, 7.1, is solar and storage project. Updates for council on the progress. And I would presume that Tammy is speaking to this. Yes, good. Go ahead, Tammy. Good to see your face again.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Madam Mayor, Council, and Happy New Year. I'm going to just share my screen with you here. So please let me know when it's working. Can you see the presentation appropriately? Yes? Okay, great. So Council, as outlined in your packages, staff are presenting an update today on the solar and storage project progress, and in particular on the hazardous materials abatement on site, as well as the engineering, procurement, and construction phases of the project. Council will recall that in order to evaluate the presence of contaminants on site, a stage 1 and stage 2 preliminary site investigation were each completed. The results of these studies included recommendations related to hazardous materials on site, which required removal, and some of which required special handling and disposal. A hazardous materials risk assessment was completed to guide the abatement and removal activities in order to ensure the safety of workers and visitors to the area was protected, as well as the environmental integrity of the property. Specifically, there were a number of pipes containing asbestos and lead that required special handling on the site. The materials you see in the photos on the screen have now been removed from the site with the assistance of a qualified abatement firm and a third-party inspector. These are photos of some of the larger pipes following the removal of the asbestos-containing wrap and ready to be taken away for final disposal. In total, over 12,000 kilograms of material have been removed from the site to date, with further works required in the coming months. Here you see some of the materials that are left to be removed from the site. The asterisks beside concrete indicates the possible presence of silica, which was a hazardous material in the technical reports, and which means that the full site abatement won't be completed until this particular material is removed as per those technical reports. The rest of the materials are non-hazardous debris that will be cleaned up as part of the site preparation and works. Again, the idea is that at the end of the project, the area will be fully remediated to a more natural state, which is good not only for the environment and aesthetics of the area, but also for the efficiency of the panels, as the vegetation understory will lower the temperature on site, which increases the efficiency of the panels and their ability to produce power. Turning to the engineering, procurement, and construction phases, the district released a request for proposals in fall of 2020 with two distinct work packages: RFP and engineering support and quality assurance services. There's a small typo here, Council, my apologies. 14 responses, not 16, 14 responses were received, 12 for each of these packages and 2 for the RFP support only. Each of these was evaluated and scored separately. I'm very pleased to announce that ATCO Power was the top ranking proponent for both packages, and that we've successfully entered into a contract with them to complete both work packages. As you may know, Council, ATCO is themselves an electric utility, and this provides invaluable insight into the project, both from the short-term development perspective, as well as our long-range operations and ownership of the project. ATCO has recently completed practically identical scopes of work for solar and storage projects in smaller communities, and their enthusiasm for this project really stood out in their proposal and the subsequent vendor interviews. So we're very much looking forward to working with them. Moving forward, over the next several months, we will be developing the full engineering, procurement, and construction RFP, releasing it, evaluating the proposals, and hopefully hiring a vendor to move forward with. We'll be completing the hazardous material removal that I spoke to a moment ago and beginning the detailed design of the project, which will of course include consultation both with council and the community. We'll be finalizing the technical specifications and the selection of the various equipment and putting in our orders for that equipment. While we wait for it to arrive, we will be beginning site preparation, and that's anticipated to start this fall. Through 2022 and 2023, we'll be completing the preparation and installation and eventual interconnection of the installation, including the upgrades to our electrical utility. In closing, 2021 is going to be a very busy and productive year for this project, and staff are looking forward to continuing to update and engage council and the community as progress continues. Thanks for your time. That concludes the summary of my report, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. And I can stop sharing my screen for you, Madam Mayor, so that you can...
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Barkwell.
An early report contemplated battery backup for district-owned buildings, but the costs were very high. Does the RFP contain that concept?
Thank you. Through the chair, just while I figure out how to stop sharing my screen here, apologies. The RFP has asked our consultants to help us do some evaluation of the different possible configurations for the project. ATCO will not be helping us to answer those questions per se, but will be helping us to come forward with some preliminary guidance for the EPC vendor in order for them to help us answer what are the best configurations for the project, which may include backup for some of our buildings or not.
So eventually, before making a decision, we'll have a cost estimates for that type of a system.
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
There we go. Sorry about that.
There, thank you. Any other questions for Tammy? All right. Could I have somebody bring forward the resolution, please? Councillor Carlson, sorry.
Do I need to speak it?
Yes, please.
All right, I'll move that the solar storage project progress update report dated January 11th, 2021 be received from the Sustainability and Alternate Energy Coordinator for information.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Seconder? Councillor Traynor, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Councillor Carlson.
Just want to add that it's very nice to see an update, and it's nice to have a deadline on there, and I really do hope that we can make all of those timelines. I think that's really important for this council to have this successfully completed. So thanks, Tammy.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. I have to say I had a little giggle when you said this is going to be a very busy year for this project. It kind of implies that your other years haven't been busy, but yes, that's good to hear that things are really moving along. Thank you. Okay, I'll call the question. All in favor? Sorry.
Oh.
More discussion, Councillor Barkle.
Yeah. Yes, there's been correspondence between staff passed on to me because I made the inquiry and our consultants about what the greenhouse gas emissions from solar were compared to hydro. As our sustainability coordinator, now in a position to be able to tell us what the greenhouse gas emissions for solar are versus hydro.
Thank you, through the chair. So the methodology that the District of Summerland uses is the provincial guidelines.
No. That's not what I asked.
So
the methodology says we report zero. That's like standing on a scale which is broken and saying, oh, I guess I don't weigh anything, or buying ice cream that doesn't say how many calories it has and saying, oh, I can eat all I want.
Councillor
Barkle. Point of order.
Yes.
You are out of order.
You are out of order, Councillor Barkle. Please restate your question in a way that you can get the answer that you're looking for.
Okay, first I'll say I don't want to hear that our reporting methodology does not have a number for solar, so that's what we report zero to the provincial government. I want to know what the greenhouse gas emissions from solar are versus the hydro that we currently use. I mean, that's a relevant question. This is supposed to be a sustainability, so we need to know the emissions of greenhouse gases for solar versus hydro. And I've asked this question before.
Thank you, through the chair. So two comments that I can make or offer is first, this project is a utility infrastructure project. It is not intended to be a greenhouse gas emissions reduction project. It does have a co-benefit that it will decrease the amount of emissions that are reported through our legislative framework, which is how we report on greenhouse gas emissions in the district. So I can offer that. In terms of how emissions are quantified, there are a practically infinite number of ways that you can slice how different energy sources are evaluated in terms of their emission standards. So The methodology that we use in the province, and the district follows that methodology, has a certain emissions factor, and that's what the district uses in our legislatively required reporting. I can inform council that we've received recent correspondence from the ministry regarding the emissions factor for electricity in BC, and that they are actually going to be raising the emissions standard for the electricity that's currently being consumed through Fortis BC. So that is to say that in the future, the electricity that we get from Fortis will actually have a higher emission standard than we've reported in the past, which means that the differential between solar and our current electricity source will actually be greater moving forward. So that's what I can offer in terms of how we in the district evaluate the emission standards of different energy sources.
Councillor Barkwell?
Yes, our sustainability coordinator has answered a question that I said I didn't want answered. Our reporting to the province does not use real numbers. And I don't know how many times I have to say that. It's not relevant to use the reporting numbers to the province when they report that when there is no number for solar. The consultant from Fractal at our July 13th meeting reported that took our number for Fortis, which is 2.5 grams kilowatt hour. And that's how emissions from electricity are reported. I could go into more, but I think I'll give you a written proposal. But this is basic information that we should have had when we made our decision, and it hasn't been provided. And he multiplied it by 35, which was the number of years that the solar panels they expect to live, and said, oh, well, you have to compare that to 90. Well, that's completely false. It's painfully wrong. And we've written to him, and he admits that that was wrong, that he tried to compare 90 grams a kilowatt hour to current hydro production. Studies by Stantec Engineering for BC Hydro say that the 11 grams a kilowatt hour is the expected lifetime emissions from hydro in the Site C. Our current hydro numbers, and I have them right here, if you would like, and I can share them with you, are about 10 or 12, very similar to year. The 2.5 grams from Fortis per kilowatt hour is because they only use the annual emissions. They don't incorporate the construction costs, because construction, well, that horse has left the building. You know, those gases have already escaped, so that's not relevant to current use. What you want to compare is new sources of electricity and the greenhouse gases associated with them. So if you say you are concerned about the environment, if you can say you are concerned about sustainability, then you will compare the greenhouse gases from solar production versus hydro production. Everybody thinks solar is great because it's replacing coal. Coal has 500 grams a kilowatt hour. Gas would have 250. We have 11 grams a kilowatt hour, and all the studies that I have, and which our consultant has now provided, show that solar has 40 to 50 grams of emissions per kilowatt hour. So we're doing a project which is harmful to the environment, 4 to 5 times worse than our current emissions. And that information wasn't presented to us when we were making our decisions. And as
Councillor
you can see,
Barkwell,
it's
I am
really
going
hard
to
to draw that
interrupt.
out.
Councillor Barkwell, I am going to interrupt you. I don't appreciate how you are setting Tammy up. You're asking her for an answer to a question that she is having difficulty answering. You already know the answer to that question. That isn't fair. Share it with the rest of council before asking the question. Then we'll all know. Secondly, Tammy stated right up front that this is an sustainable infrastructure program or project. There is a difference. And simply stating that comparing the GHG emissions between hydro and solar, when we've just heard, and we all know that this is a sustainability project, there are all kinds of different ways of measuring sustainability. Tammy, if you would care to answer any more, go ahead.
I'd like to respond to that, Madam Mayor.
I'm going to go to Tammy because you were asking, well, you actually weren't asking a question, but you were going on about this GHG matter. I would like to have Tammy to respond, and then I will go back to you, Councillor Barkwell.
Thanks. Through the mayor, what I can offer council is a couple of things. So first, Fractal is not a GHG emissions expert firm. It's not their core area of business or expertise, and so I would tend to rely more on the Ministry of Environment and their team, which is dedicated to this work and their expertise in this area for properly evaluating, particularly not only Canadian, but BC direct emissions, than I would an American firm who it's not their area of expertise. So we rely on the expertise of the ministry and their in-house staff for these types of answers. And I just also want to be clear, for council that, and hopefully that's been clear all along, that there's no such thing as zero impact energy sourcing. There is no form of energy that does not have an impact of some type. And so absolutely solar has an impact, as does our current source of energy. And so hopefully that's clear, and it's clear that staff are aware that this is not a zero impact energy source, as there is no such thing.
Thank you, Tammy. Back to you, Councillor Barkwell.
Yes, correct. There's no zero. Nobody was trying to say it was zero. The relevant question for this council is, what is the impact of solar versus hydro power? I have here the studies from BC Hydro themselves. Studies by Stantec Engineering on our own sources. And you're right, Fractal isn't an expert in that area, but they completely misled council at our meeting, telling us it was 90 grams a kilowatt hour. And it wasn't a forum where we could start arguing with them. And they misled council, saying that newer studies were much lower than the UN studies I quoted. I couldn't start arguing with them about that at that forum. What we need to look at, and what we need the answer for, whether it comes from the ministry, and we know twice our sustainability coordinator told us at our July 13th meeting, was that Summerland reported, according to the ministry guidelines, which don't have any numbers for solar. Well, at least they don't have any numbers yet. Maybe they will in the future, but it's not relevant. What's relevant is what the actual number is, and nobody's giving us that. And they don't want us to know, it would appear. But I think the public should know, and the public should know, and I'm going to make sure they know, and that council is going to have to live with this decision. And also, council is going to have to live with the decision on the financial aspects of it.
Councillor Carlson.
That's the end of my...
I just have a question for you, Councillor Barkwell. When we started discussing this solar project and the fact that there was a grant opportunity and the opportunity to actually do a sustainability and resiliency project for our community, all of this anger that you currently are throwing at us through this computer screen wasn't there. And all of these questions that you continue to ask, even though you have the answers, as far as I can tell, you have the answers. You're trying to get the answers out and get people to agree with your answers. I'm just wondering, we had our conversations last July about the location. So in my view, your opinion of this project changed when the location was being discussed. And I want to know, is that true that this
I can
came, or is
respond to
it
that.
that you've always disagreed with the solar project?
When the project was first proposed, I was as enthusiastic as the rest of council, but at that time, I wasn't aware of I had assumed, like most of the world does, that solar is beneficial to the environment. And that it certainly is. Everywhere that you're replacing coal and gas, you have big farms, it's replacing terawatts of electricity in Arizona and China. But when you have hydro, and I wasn't really sure it was a surprise to me to get these numbers. And I tried to bring it out prior to the July 13th meeting. At the July 13th meeting, we never really, and I believe that it was the responsibility of council to be asking that question, to know what the environmental impacts were. We were operating as under an assumption, I believe, that it was better, and nobody was telling us that it was different. And as you can see, I'm raising the same points I raised 6 months ago, and nobody seems to care. And our sustainability coordinator, I think it should be her first priority, not doing a nice project, because what you said, well, I won't even bother repeating what you said because I don't think it's very flattering.
I'll go back to Councillor Carlson and then to Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, I just want to put it out there that I don't think it's fair to say that nobody seems to care, because that's not true.
Councillor Holmes.
Yeah, thank you. First, I like to say I've never really framed this, seen this as a hydro versus solar kind of question. There's so many other aspects to this project which have been discussed and discussed and discussed. I could say that nobody seems to care about all the things that I've spoken about in the past, but I'm not really interested in saying about repeating what I've already said many times, except to say that I think we need to look at the future and not just at the present when we're looking at a project like this.
Thank you, Councillor Holmes. Any further discussion? Okay, we have on the floor, Councillor Holmes, or sorry, Councillor Barkwell.
Yeah, I'm not sure where I'll have to bring a notice of motion later. Yeah. Thanks, sorry.
Okay, so on the floor, we have to accept the progress update for information. I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? That is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Tammy. On to item 7.2, Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream Funding Application. And this will, I think this is one for Chris. Yes.
Actually, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I'll introduce it, if that's okay.
Okay, yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to outline a few high points that you'll see in the report, which I'm sure you've already had a chance to look at. The first is that there are program parameters, as you can imagine, which do constrain the nature and type of projects that we can put forward in this program. So some analysis have been done by staff, and you'll see shortly staff will walk through some of the projects that were considered and hit the high points there. The second is I wanted to make sure council understands that the work of any project has to be completed by December 31st, 2021. So less than a year, time sort of running by. And of course, there's always the option to request an extension, but behind the scenes, we are being told that it's unlikely that extensions would be granted at this time. There's some constraint there, I think, on the funder's side. And then lastly, I just wanted to point out, as you'll see in the report also, that we can only put forward for one single project. So there's, I think, a lot that are of interest and we've explored, but it's just one single project we do need to select if in fact it is council's wish to proceed. And with that, I'll turn it over to Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham.
Thanks, Graham. Thank you, Madam Mayor. So as noted in the report and in the attached program guidelines, the scope of this program is fairly diverse. It can range anything from retrofits and repairs and upgrades to buildings, to active transportation, to disaster mitigation and adaptation infrastructure. So with that wide scope, staff looked at the capital plans for the next few years and identified 11 possible projects that could be considered. As noted in the report, there's a description under each. I'll just briefly go through them, but of these, 9 were not recommended for various reasons, either due to the construction completion timelines, or we've already applied for funding under a separate program. So first off, Giants Head Road. So the active transportation portion of this project could be applied for at $1.3 million. Staff have been directed, though, to investigate short-term options for the roadway repair in 2021. And so with that, we'll be bringing back a report and information to council this year at alternatives to doing the full water main separation and pathway extension and road reconstruction project, and just look at a short-term roadway repair as an option. And if we were to go ahead with this application and we're successful in getting it under this program, we would be then committing ourselves to the other $6.7 million for the remainder of that project if we're not looking at a short-term roadway solution. So something for council to consider on that one. So with that, staff is recommending that we don't proceed with this application for this project and just move forward with the investigation that council has directed staff to proceed with in 2021.
Could I just stop you for a second, Chris?
Yes, for sure.
I'm wondering if council would like to comment or ask questions as we go through each one, or hold it to the end, and what is your preference, Chris? So council? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, definitely. If there's questions along the way, I would definitely encourage those.
Okay, council, any questions on the Giants Head possibility, Giants Head Road? All right.
Okay, next project was Memorial Park Playground. So looking at a $200,000 to $250,000 project in Memorial Park to replace the structure that's currently there. This one, however, is eligible for funding through our DCC reserves. Thus, there's no impact on the taxation. So if we proceeded with this grant, we could be getting federal and provincial funding dollars. However, we already have significant reserves and limited projects that we can apply DCC funding to. So we would suggest not proceeding with this project.
Questions, council? All right, number 3.
Next is the T-pier replacement down at Rotary Beach. So this one's slated for design in 2022 with construction in 2023. Prior to that, though, we're looking to do in 2021 a waterfront concept plan for Rotary Beach and Peach Orchard, which would help identify the scope of what this replacement will be for this structure. So with not having that plan completed yet, we'd be a little bit premature to apply for the construction of this project under this program. Okay, no questions on that one. The fourth one was Rotary Beach and Peach Orchard washroom upgrades. We've submitted under a different program under the Community Economic Recovery and Infrastructure Program in October of 2022 for 100% funding to look at the replacement of these 2 buildings or improvements to these buildings, to look at winterizing at least one of them and improving the accessibility and any other parameters to make them more user-friendly under the current COVID restrictions and parameters that we're looking as far as additional spacing within them. But the big component would be winterizing one of them for all seasonal use throughout the whole year to encourage use of our waterfront trails. So since we've applied for a separate program, this one was not considered or wouldn't be recommended under this program as well. Seeing no questions, number 5 is the Transcanada Trail, the trailhead amenities and paving of Fenwick Road. So this is one of the trailheads off of the Transcanada Trail. We currently have it in the budget in 2025 to look at these 2 improvements to the trailhead. But this was identified that it would be beneficial to have this following the Conkle Mountain Trails plan, which is slated for 2023, in which case the recommendations for this trailhead may change. So again, a little premature to move forward with any construction on this project under this program.
Could I just ask one question about this? I'm wondering if this is also considered an area in the Parks DCC that we might be able to do this particular project. Let's see, I'm just trying to, yeah, $115,000 in the future.
That would be a question, I think, for our Director of Finance that he may need to answer. So we may need to get back to you on that one.
Okay, thank you.
Next up was the Lakeshore Drive repairs and erosion protection. So this is stemming from some damage that occurred in 2017 with the high lake levels. We're looking to repair some of the damage that was done during that high water event, as well as reinforce the shoreline to protect it from any future similar events, or with climate change, any factors that may impact the wind conditions or the wind events on the lake, as well as high water events. So we've recently received our 10-year application approval and our Water Sustainability Act Section 11 approval for this project, which had been in the works since following the event in 2017. So it's been a bit of a long road to get to this point. And we may be eligible for some funding through DFA, upwards of $300,000 if based on our estimates for what should be eligible under DFA, but that'll still follow under review once the work is completed and that application is submitted. So this is one of the projects that we do recommend, and actually it is the recommended of the 2 that we would recommend for this project. It would fall under the disaster mitigation and adaptation component of the criteria. Just with it being the only link to Crescent Beach, as well as the corridor for the sewer force main that comes and serves from Crescent Beach. It would be some critical infrastructure that we need to ensure is protected from any future disaster or climate change. Are there any questions on this one? No. Okay. The other one that we recommended that would be eligible for consideration under this one from staff's recommendation would be Powell Beach Groin Reconstruction. So this is an existing structure that's on the east end of Powell Beach that helps protect the beach from scour, from wind events and wave events, and protects the sand in the beach that's there around this park amenity. It was identified, in the 2019 management plan for Powell Beach, and is currently in the budget for 2024. So it is one that could be moved up if council wished to proceed with it under this application. There would be some design work that would be required. However, staff feels that it could all be completed in 2021 if it were selected as the approved project. Okay, the next 2 were brought forward from the Trails of the Okanagan Society. First one was the Ferbergrade Trail and connecting the community. It looks at a cycling route through Summerland from the Ferbergrade Trail that's along Garnet Valley, and then to the existing route on Peach Orchard Road. So it would be the connection from the south end of Garnet Valley through to Peach Orchard Road on the east side of Highway 97. This project wasn't identified in any of our rec or trail master plan work that was done recently, and therefore estimates for this project are currently unknown. And it's therefore not on any of our capital plans at this point. So meeting the 2021 construction deadlines would be difficult to scope this project and move forward with design and construction all in 1 year. The second one is a core active transportation route that the Trails of the Okanagan Society has identified. It's basically a route around Giant's Head Mountain. It would be connecting from the south end of Hillborn Street, and returning to the downtown core along South Victoria. So there are portions along here that do have painted bike lane, shoulder lanes along there, as well as the separate path that's on the north end of Giants Head Road. So it would be connecting the missing gaps through there. Again, this one isn't explicitly in our master plans as a full project, as they've scoped in their request to us to consider this, and therefore meeting the deadlines of the 2021 construction again would be difficult to go through the whole design process as well as construction in 1 year. The second last one on here is Enious Creek. As council's aware, we've applied under the Community Emergency Preparedness Fund under the Structural Flood Mitigation Stream to complete portions of the identified projects. There were 6 projects that were identified from the assessment report. We anticipate getting some DFA funding for these, but a significant portion would fall under the district's requirement to fund ourselves. And so, yeah, we've applied under that program and are still awaiting to hear if we were successful. But because we have not heard, we don't anticipate or don't recommend applying for this project again, which would take up our one application on this program if we were to apply, yet be successful on the other application. And the last one is the Eisentop Dam Outlet Pipe Replacement Project, which we recently submitted just last week on the ICIP funding through the Adaptation, Resiliency, and Disaster Mitigation funding. So this is was a separate stream that's sort of falls under the same or the overall scope of this program, but it separates out flood mitigation into its own component. And that is where we've applied for the Eisentop Dam and the improvements to that facility based on preventing floods in the future. So with that, like I said, the 2 projects that staff recommended be considered are Lakeshore Drive and the Powell Beach Groin reconstruction. Lakeshore Drive is the recommended project. The design is complete. The applications for our Water Sustainability Act approval are now in place, and we are able to move forward for construction as soon as funding is secured for this project. And then just one addition to the resolution when council is considering this is that we'll need to add a second part of this that says that council supports the project and commits any associated ineligible costs and any cost overruns for this project, just to ensure that we've got the proper wording for the grant application on that resolution. So with that, if there are any questions from council, I'll be happy to take those now.
Thank you. Councillor Trainer.
Chris, what was, maybe I missed it, but what's the funding cap for this grant? Like, is there top number you can submit?
I don't believe there is, but there is they give what the total limit of what the entire project or what the entire program provides. And I believe it was around.
So there's a program budget, but not an individual cap for municipalities?
Yeah, off the top, I believe that's correct.
Okay, because I just want to make sure that we're applying for a project where we're getting the most bang for our buck, because this one seems to be pretty, wide ranging. So we have the opportunity to submit projects that might not get covered under other grants, which are more stricter. And then I just have one other question with the lakeshore repairs. I agree that that's a good project to submit, but I just want to confirm you had further up in the report that flood mitigation is excluded from this program, but can you just quickly explain why this one is still eligible?
Yeah, so it still includes disaster mitigation and adaptation to climate change as components that are eligible. So that's where we would be looking in the application questions and answers. We'd be looking to stress the disaster mitigation and adaptation to any future wind events through climate change, and that this being the only corridor, as well as having sewer infrastructure within it that would be looking to protect against. It's also at the toe of the silt bluffs that head out to Crescent Beach. So we'd be looking to protect any damage to the road, which then could impact that area as being a key component of the project. So it is something that we'll follow up with the program director on, just to ensure that they wouldn't categorize this as flood mitigation. But based on my review of it, I'm pretty confident that it would be applicable.
Okay, can I ask one quick final question to that? So if we did pick that project I can't remember in that section if there's any bike path or room for a bike there. Is there something, could we include that in this at all?
No,
Improving
it's, well,
cycling?
I guess it is noted as an active transportation corridor. However, widening that road through that section is very difficult. Any widening on the lakeside would likely not be approved through the Ministry of Environment or through FLNRO, because we'd then be taking away some of the footprint of the lake, and that our current applications for the work that we're looking to do don't include encroaching into the lake at all. It's just replacing currently what's there as far as riprap and a road edge. So that would be difficult. But so what we do have along there is we've reduced the speed limit, and we have it's a shared road corridor where we have signage for share the road for pedestrians, bikers, and vehicles. But widening it to put in any sort of dedicated bike infrastructure would be very difficult and very expensive.
Okay, thank you.
Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through you to Councillor Trainer. Regarding the question of project maximums, I'm just reading from the program guide, which is also attached in your materials at 7.2.1, and it's section 1.5, and I'll just read a short few sentences. The funding provided projects is cost shared by the federal government and the province of BC. Applicants must be prepared to finance project construction and ineligible costs, as well as any cost overruns. Projects cannot exceed $10 million in total costs. But of course, the clincher here is the second part, which is they must be completed within the program timelines, and that's December 31, 2021. So the limiting factor here is more on the time side than it is on the financial side. Thank you.
Councillor Trainer.
I'm just throwing this out there that it might not be possible, but could we put in the Giant's Head Road project? Because the engineering's all been done, right? Is that correct? If it's $10 million, that's a lot.
It is, but the eligible components would be the active transportation component of the project, which is the 1.3 million of the total $8 million project. So council would be committing themselves to the other $6.7 million, which we currently have in the budget as being funded through borrowing or through another grant application if successful. But the road and the water main components would not be eligible under this program.
Okay, too bad.
Councillor Holmes.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, my thinking when I first looked at this was the Giant's Head Road project was actually the only one that's on our strategic priorities. And when we talked about that, about holding that one off, it was always to wait to see if any grant opportunities came up, even for part of it. And here we are, something's come up, what we envisioned a couple of years ago. And but whether we'd be able to do the whole thing with this year or not, even if we did decide to go with it, is a different story altogether, I guess. But I'm wondering, with the bike path now, isn't the designs to continue that bike path separate from the actual road itself, and would it be possible to make the Giant's Head Road bike path a separate project?
Yeah, so we looked at that further at one point in the past when there was a Bike BC active transportation grant that was coming forward. Likely with all, you would be limiting yourself, and you would be probably ripping up a large portion or sections of that pathway if you were to extend it separately ahead of the road and water main works. Yes, it is going to be separated all the way down to Gartrail Road to the Y, which is about 1.6 kilometers of this stretch that we're looking at. And then there's the additional 1 or 1.1 that's south of there that would be shoulder lanes. But it would be very difficult to go ahead with the pathway first and then to try to work around it with the water main works, with the extent of the excavations that are going to be required for the water main installations, as well as widening and straightening out and changing the alignment of the road slightly in areas to make it work, you would probably lose portions of that trail during that work, and you would have to go through it with some services, and you would be creating just another obstacle for the roadway construction and water main construction if and when that proceeded.
Can I follow up?
Yes, please go ahead.
Though I guess it depends on what you're planning to come back with your other recommendations as we discussed about last time. So that's you're talking there if we do the full twinning and the whole full project. But if you're planning to come back with something that's more of a repaving job, or I'm not sure what it is you're planning to come back with, that might be some sort of following on what we talked about last time, then maybe the pathway would be feasible. No?
Yeah, I guess if council ends up committing to a shorter term roadway repair, then yeah, the intent of that would be to stay within the existing limits of the asphalt and not widen the road or change the grades at all. It would just be improving the surface of the existing road that's there. That being said, if you then wanted to go ahead with the pathway extension as part of that, it would just again be something that might be impacted in the future when you're looking at the water main system replacement as well. The challenge on that one would likely be more of the timelines of getting the construction completed. Yes, the design is basically done. But rolling that out and trying to move forward that large of a section this year may pose some difficulties, but if it is just limited to the pathway and the road surface, it may not. But I think that discussion still needs to be had with council once we pull together the information on the roadway options to decide if that's ultimately where council wants to go versus a full reconstruction of that corridor.
Graham.
And just a reminder, Madam Mayor, the project application deadline of January 27th so this month.
Yep, important consideration, that's for sure. Not a lot of time. Any other questions? Oh, Councillor Traynor.
If no one else has any questions, I will bring forward the recommendation put forward by staff.
I'll ask Karen to read that because Chris has asked for some amendments to be made to that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I may need Chris's help here, but right now we have that staff be directed to apply to the Investing in Canada Infrastructure Program, COVID-19 Resilience Infrastructure Stream for the Lakeshore Drive Repairs and Erosion Control Project, and that council supports this project and commits the funding for completion.
Yeah, I guess the wording in the that's recommended is the last part of that is and commits to any associated ineligible costs and cost overruns.
Yeah. Okay, and that council supports this project and commits to any ineligible costs and cost overruns.
Good, thank you. Councillor Traynor, are you willing to bring this forward still?
Yes, I am. Chris, could you just quickly tell us what those cost overruns could be, just so we have an idea if they were to come up before I bring this forward?
Yeah, so in the application, you're required to outline the scope of work, and they typically they'll cap you at the amount that you've requested. So if you go out to tender, or if you run into any unforeseens during construction, those additional costs may not be, even though they may be eligible, you will be capped at the maximum amount that you were approved in your application.
Okay, thank you. I'll bring this forward.
Seconded by Councillor Patton, thank you. I have a question related to your response to Councillor Trainer a minute ago, is in your application, have you built in some contingency, or are you not kind of allowed to do that?
No, you are. Typically, there's a percentage amount on the cost estimate that you can have in there for contingency.
Good. So that might lower any cost overruns. Thank you.
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? Okay, I will call the question. All in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Holmes is opposed. Thank you. That carries. Okay, so on to item 7.3, and the second of the two late items, Okanagan Nation Alliance Letter of Support for the Trout Creek Rehabilitation, Adaptation, Resilience, and Disaster Mitigation, ARDM, funding application. This is through OBWB. Oh, sorry, no, this is not, sorry. That's another one. So I'm not sure, is this, Chris, are you speaking to this one as well?
Yeah, so this program is actually due today. It's the same program that we applied for our Eisentop dam outlet pipe replacement. So this is the project that the Okanagan Nation Alliance was in front of council in February of 2020, and it's the project that is being led by their ad hoc Trout Creek Steering Committee that they've pulled together with representatives from different ministries, from the OBWB, from the district, and from the Okanagan Nation Alliance. And it's looking to reconstruct the portion of Trout Creek from the mouth of the gorge on the west side of Highway 97 to the bridge at Highway 97. So through that section, at some point in the past, it was straightened. A dike was installed on the district side, so on the north side of the creek through there. And it was created a long straight run, which was optimized flow through there as far as a moving water perspective, but as far as fish habitat, it's very it's not conducive to fish and to the salmon and the trout that they're looking to rehabilitate in this section. So if I've attached the presentation that the ONA gave in February of 2020 for council to become familiar with again if they weren't, or if they'd forgot what was discussed. But it's their application is going to look at all the pre-construction activities as far as permitting, environmental protection plan, any wildlife and fish surveys, and then look at trying to complete the works as well this fall to move the south side of the dike, so on the opposite side of the creek from the district, to move that dike back and to establish a meandering corridor through there that would allow for better fish habitat, but would also allow for flood mitigation. If high flows are seen through Trout Creek, it would allow additional room for the creek to meander into and to overflow into before it made its way further down the creek to the lake. So that's going to be the component that they're focusing on. So this program that they're applying to is it includes that flood mitigation piece, which is what they're going to key in on for this project, and it's looking to handle the 1 in 200 year flood risk for this corridor. So with that, they're looking for a letter of support from the district council to include in their application that they'll be submitting today.
Chris, Madam Mayor, is it my turn?
Yes.
Okay. Chris, just wondering if in the plan it will still allow public access, a walking trail and a parking lot from there to the beach.
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
yeah, we've identified that as a key piece that we'd be looking to maintain in this section.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Councillor Holmes?
Yeah, my understanding, all the work is on the west side of the highway. It's not on the east side of the highway at all.
Yeah, west side of the highway and south side of the creek.
But of course, there is a substantial walking trail on that side of the highway as well. One of Rangers and my favorite places to walk. Any other questions? I do have one. Okay. Chris, when you were mentioning the ad hoc, and I know that we have heard this before, and I'm just being lazy, not looking back through the information. In the ad hoc committee, or as part of the ad hoc committee, is there a representative from Department of Fisheries and Oceans?
Yes, there is. It was Sarah Osteroff who was there at the initial meeting.
Good, thank you. Thanks for that reminder. Any other questions, Council? Okay, could I have someone bring forward the recommendation to send them a letter of support for this project? Councillor Van Elfen and seconded by Councillor Holmes. Further discussion? And this letter has already been drafted in anticipation of a positive response from council because they need it today. So I will ask the question. All in favor? Any opposed? None. So that carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you, Councillor Holmes, for bringing this forward. I think it was you, was it? No, that was something else. Yes, thank you. That's later on today. Okay. I will ask you again, Karen, anybody interested in speaking at this second comment period? Media?
Madam Mayor?
Okay, thank you. And so I will ask for a resolution to close the meeting to the public, please. Councillor Van Elfen and Councillor Carlson, all in favor? Okay, great. Thank you. So